Hi, everyone. Welcome to Breaking the Silence, a podcast produced by Angels Protection, Inc., where we amplify the voices that challenge inequity, advance healing, and reimagine leadership in spaces where influence shapes lives. I'm your host, Makaila Davis, founder and chairwoman of Angels Protection, Inc. And today's episode is a part of our Men Leading in Academia series, where we spotlight men whose leadership extends beyond titles. Men who are reshaping academic spaces, mental health systems, and professional environments through service, scholarship, and integrity. This series exists because representation in academia matters, because who leads determines who feels seen, and because healing centered leadership is essential in a world that often demands productivity without care. And today's guest embodies that truth. Dr. Justin T. Guy is a scholar practitioner, educator, and mental health leader whose work sits at the intersection of academia, community care, and uncomfortable but unnecessary transformation. He is the founder and owner of Redeeming Solutions LLC, an organization grounded in powerful mission, supporting individuals and institutions as they trust the process of growth that often begins in discomfort. Through Redeeming Solutions, Dr. Guy partners with universities, nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and community groups to address mental health disparities, reduce stigma, and cultivate psychology safe environments where people can thrive. With more than 13 years of experience in mental health and behavioral health, Dr. Guy's journey began with a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology from Southern University and A&M College, followed by a Master's of Social Work from Louisiana State University. He became a licensed clinical social worker in 2018 and a board-approved clinical supervisor in 2020, building not only clinical expertise but a deep commitment to ethical leadership and mentorship. In 2025, Dr. Guy earned his Doctor of Social Work degree from Tulane University, where his research focused on depression in African American men, belonging, health equity, social terms of health, and adverse childhood experiences. His scholarship reflects what his practice has long demonstrated, that healing cannot be separated from context, identity, or systems of power. While at Tulane, Dr. Guy founded the National Association of Black Social Workers student chapter in 2024 and served as its chapter advisor, creating a space for advocacy, leadership, development, and community among Black social work students. In recognition of his academic excellence, civic engagement, and student leadership, he received the Martin Luther King Jr. Freedom and Justice Award in 2025. Dr. Guy's leadership extends well beyond the classroom. He serves as a doctoral teaching fellow at Tulane University, where he co-instructed graduate level coursework in advanced clinical community practice, mentored students, integrated evidence-based and equity-centered frameworks into curriculum, and helped shape future clinicians through both scholarship and care. In parallel, he has held leadership roles within healthcare systems, supervising multidisciplinary teams, managing care for high-risk populations, leading process improvement initiatives, ensuring compliance with state, federal, and NCQA standards. Across every role, his leadership has centered collaboration, accountability, and humanity. Dr. Guy is also certified in sports social work, a certified case manager, an ACE educator, and a Six Sigma Black Belt. Bringing together clinical depth, systems thinking, and operational excellence, he is deeply passionate about men's mental health, healthy relationships, and creating psychologically safe workplaces where people are not just productive but whole. And beyond academia and clinical leadership, Dr. Guy is also an author. His faith-based poetry book, Divine Expressions by the Grace of God, offers encouragement to readers navigating fear, depression, and identity, reminding us that healing often begins with language, reflection, and grace. This is what leadership in academia looks like when scholarship is rooted in service and learning is inseparable from care. We are honored to welcome Dr. Justin T. Guy to Breaking the Silence and to the Men Leading in Academia series.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you, Michaela.
Yes, thank you so much for being a part of this. So after that, I just really kind of want to start and go into like what first drew you to social work and mental health, and how did your academic experiences shape your path?
So, funny story is, this is my tagline. I never wanted to be a social worker. Growing up, in the '90s and whatnot, we had this term called being a nerd. That was me. I was into books, science, engineering, all the things, video games. I was a gamer. So I grew up just in that realm. I had a friend of mine who told me I was a great listener, and she was like, "You need to major in psychology." And I'm like, "What is psychology?" So when I was in high school, I took my first psychology course, and I loved it. And then I went to college and I majored in it. And so I thought that I was going to become a counseling psychologist. Although before then, I wanted to be a computer engineer.
Mm,
So thought I was gonna become a counseling psychologist and got accepted to the University of Memphis for their program. However, things fell through for us financially. First gen college student, first gen going into grad school. Don't know what I'm doing. Don't have the money for it. I'm working at a movie theater while I'm in school or whatnot. So didn't really have the fellowships or assistantships back then. So my professors told me, your heart, your compassion, your mindset for people, your love for people, you would be great as a social worker. And I was just like, I don't want to take people's kids. And they were like, they do more than just that. So I applied to LSU for their Masters in Social Work program. And mind you, I probably like 4 days left before everything was needed to be turned in when I first just made this decision. So make a long story short, I got in and I started my journey on becoming a social worker. And so throughout this journey, I battled my own mental health concerns. As a child, I grew up battling with depression and anxiety. So one of the biggest things for me was just fear of failure, fear of missing out, just fear of not being loved, fear of not being enough. And so with my life and my experience, I started writing poetry as a way to cope. And that helped me to connect with other people as well who were dealing with some sort of brokenness or some sort of identity crisis or even just challenges in life. And I saw that my pain could be turned into purpose. So that's what truly led me into this area. And I thank God for that because it was him who was leading and guiding my steps. When I was in high school, one of the things that I prayed to him was that before I die, I want to make a powerful impact on your people. I don't
mm,
know what that's going to look like. I don't know what that's going to feel like, but I'm open to it. I'm willing to do it. Use me, Lord.
mm.
And that's what I did. I prayed that prayer, and since then, my life has just been on this trajectory of helping people who are dealing with brokenness and loneliness and underserved and just the forgotten. And I know what that feels like because that was me.
Mm. No, I really appreciate that. And like even like the points of like how it kind of like it all ties back to like how you grew up. Like and then, you found poetry and like that's a really like great way to kind of battle some of those things that you were going through and being able to connect with others and then like incorporating that now like in your practice as now you're a doctor, you're a social worker, and like just having all these different experiences, like as a child, how that can impact your future and which way you go.
Mhm.
Um, so like also too, I wanted to ask like, at what moment did you realize that you wanted to lead not just practice within academia, and a professional space?
I think the defining part was being in companies and organizations where I saw that leadership was not effective, meaning that they may have been telling us what to do, but it wasn't modeling what to do.
Mm,
So there was a gap there. And one thing that I realized that anybody can be a leader, but not everybody's a role model.
mm,
And so I knew that I wanted to become the leader that I never had, especially when it comes to mentorship. Me being a Black male and being first gen college student and also an only child, um, I lacked the the experience with people looking like me in certain places and spaces. At most times, I was the only person of color there, or even person of color that was a male. So I was kind of an outsider in a way. So I wanted to be a representation of something different. And so I decided to become that change. And so I got into leadership about 4 years ago. But even prior to the title of being a leader, I think being a leader is not just about a title, it's a position that you carry by serving others. And I've always been a person to serve, whether it's in church, in my community, at school or at work, wherever it was. I just got into different roles to actually operate in that. And I saw just how it fit well for me. Like it was where I belonged. And even though it was uncomfortable, even though they had some challenges and it's definitely some growing pains, I recognize that I'm supposed to be here. And I am able to have just a privilege to occupy this space to be able to show other people what that looks like. And my hope and prayer is that I'm leading in such a way that it leaves an impression for other people to know that, hey, I can do that too. And I can trust Justin's leadership because he's genuine, he's compassionate, he's authentic, he's real. And I just truly like to meet people where they are. I really aim to give people what I never had.
No, I love that. And I think like what's really important too, like to be an effective leader is meeting people where they are.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter how many folks are under you, but also like always giving everybody that allotted time for whatever like growth they want within their particular role. I know I had to learn that through my leadership journey. But I think that's so important. And I love that, like, you're doing that. So also too, like your doctoral research is focused on depression in African American men, belonging, and social terms of health. What
Mhm.
findings stayed with you most?
For me, the alarming rates was that suicide was the third leading cause for African American men ages 18 to 35. That was the third leading cause of death. And it was just really shocking because I knew that growing up, I battled with suicide ideations. And that was something that a lot of people didn't know about. A lot of people wasn't aware of because I sheltered that. I kept it to myself. I didn't know what I was feeling and experiencing within. I just knew that it was real for me. And so it was really alarming because, like, wow, there are other people who've gone through this, however, they've completed suicide. And also just understanding that African American men complete suicide 4 to 6 times more than African American women.
Mm,
And also the utilization of mental health services for African American men was about 14 to 18% lower than their male counterpart. And that's just because of access. So the social determinants of health part was that men don't have access to mental health services. And it's not just to say that they can't get there, they don't have access to it because of the fact that they don't know the benefits of it. And sometimes when you're not exposed to it, you don't even know that it can even exist or it can even be helpful to you. Because when we think about it, mental health is such a stigma in the Black community and honestly a lot of marginalized communities as well. So I learned that in this space that it needs to become a safe space in order for people who are battling with these different issues to be able to know that they're not alone. And when it came to belonging, I recognize that a lot of people didn't feel that they belong in a space in the place that they were at. They might have been taking up space there. They were present there, but yet they were still felt alone. There was an outsider. The research was on children ages 5 to 11. Trying to see if that academic performance was impacted by whether or not they felt like they belong. And some of the research was inconclusive because of not enough study participants. That was one of the limitations. However, looking at the literature of it at that time period, we saw that a lot of people struggled to feel like they were belonging in workplaces and things of that nature. And so that also diminished and impacted their mental health as well. I don't think we think about the biological desire within us to feel that we belong somewhere.
mm.
That's an innate desire that we're born with, but it's not always filled. So oftentimes, if that void is not filled, we tend to look for it in other places and spaces, and we get off into doing some maladaptive coping mechanisms in order to fill that void.
No, I one thing that you touched on, I didn't know that it was higher for men than African American women. Um, so are you able to like touch a little bit more on that?
Yeah, sure. So with the weight that men feel in our society, we carry the load. The expectation is hard for men to be a father, to be a husband, to be a community leader, just to be as we like to say in the church, the priest of the home. It's a weight that you're carrying, and so oftentimes it's masked with strength and bruteness and masculinity versus vulnerability, humility, and compassion, saying that I need help. And oftentimes men carried it on their own because they weren't taught to share that burden with somebody else.
Mm.
And because they don't share their battles, their struggles, they tend to carry it and it weighs them down. It literally oppresses them. And it gets to a point where they feel like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's nowhere else to turn. And over time, it's as it's weighing down on them and oppressing them and affecting their ability to lead, to think clearly, to make rational decisions. And the thoughts are racing and they wonder, like, why am I still here? If I'm not able to take care of my family, she says what I'm doing isn't enough, the money isn't coming in, all these different factors, poverty, incarceration, racism, stigma, stereotypes, socioeconomical status, these different factors impacting the men, it weighs on them because what one thing that I've learned was talking to a fellow psychiatrist is that when men and women go through different things, each has a community. Women have their community. When something happens with them, they have their girls, they go out, they celebrate, they get through it, blah, blah, blah. But with men, we don't have that. We don't go to another brother. Now we isolate. We'll go drink, we'll go smoke, we'll go do something that is not healthy because we don't have anybody that we can run to.
Mm.
So it eventually the life force starts to bleed out, and eventually it leads to them not only contemplating suicide but actually taking a step towards it and completing it.
So like I think like touching on that too. So a lot of men feel like they don't have anybody to go to. Is that because of they feel like that feeling like needing to lead and just kind of keep it like on the inside instead of like thinking, oh, well, like I could have a partner that could help me through or someone to help me through this transition, going to therapy or like, I guess, like, what is the kind of, I don't know if that like, I'm trying to figure out how that correlates and what makes them not want to like look and seek for help.
They don't know that's what they're supposed to do. I
Mm,
mean, we as men are taught to provide and protect. That's pretty much the MO. We're not taught to share our feelings. You know, we're taught to suck it up, be a man about it, don't cry about it, deal with it. That's what it's about being a man. It's to shove those emotions down, away. It's basically turning a blind eye to it. And oftentimes, when you're suppressing all of that, because when you think about depression, depression is just repressed anger. You're not being heard. You're not being valued. You're not being understood. And with that continually going on, it just completely implodes on the inside. And so if you haven't been taught to share your emotions and saying that it's a safe space to share your emotions, then you're not going to do it. Everything that we're taught, behavior is taught, is
mm,
learned, it's acquired over time. It's what we see, it's what we hear, it's what we feed on. And that's why we have to be so mindful of the behaviors that we're modeling. And I think parents need to be able to see that as well. And so whenever a man and also men struggle with being vulnerable to a woman, because sometimes when mad day comes, she may say something out of anger about something that he shared in a vulnerable state and use that against him. And so that shatters him, makes him feel shame, guilty. Like, I trusted you and you shared this something very intimate that I shared with you, and you brought that up in a negative way. And that can scar him and keep him from continuing to express how he feels to her or to any other woman. And also, I think about mother wounds. If a mother hasn't been able to create a safe space for a man for him as he was growing up to share his emotions and then he doesn't know that a woman was able to do that for him too.
that makes sense. Okay. Then also, I kind of wanted to touch on too, how does your research challenge traditional narratives around men's mental health and particularly for Black men?
Well, the research shows that men struggle because they don't talk about it. They don't know how to really deal with it when things happen. We tend to answer problems by working. It's an escapism. We work. You know what a man gonna do? He gonna work. He gonna work on his car. He gonna play video games. He's gonna go to work. He's gonna work. He's gonna drown himself in that. And so that's his way of escaping. That's his way of contributing. And so he doesn't know that he needs time to rest. I mean, men typically don't live longer than women. Women do. And it's because we give so much of their energy to making sure that everything is safe and sound. And so the research is really basically shows that men aren't resting enough. Men aren't taking the time to care for themselves. Think about it. Most men don't even go to their primary care doctor, let alone to see a behavioral health provider.
Mm,
They struggle with their health because they feel as though I'm going to be fine, I'm strong, I'm good. We have low turnout rates when it comes for men getting checked out for colon cancer, or even prostate cancer. Just getting these different things checked because they don't want another man to probe them in that way. It creates some shame, some guilt, fear. They don't want to know, and that's the issue. When you don't want to know something, that's the problem. That's alarming. You should want to know because it's preventative. That's just like most men don't even like talking about testosterone. A
mm,
lot of Black men struggle with low testosterone, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It happens to all of us at some point of our lives. After the age of 30, it slowly starts to drop. But yet there's a solution for it. And it's not Viagra or Cialis. There's hormone replacement therapy that can assist you with your testosterone. So when you're looking at things medically and also behavioral health, there are opportunities for healing, for recovery, for long lasting, but men don't typically go that route because of the way that culture has taught them, like, you are supposed to provide and protect. You got to look out for them, but you can't pour from an empty cup. So you got to take care of you first. And that's hard because nobody's taught you to do that. You probably didn't see daddy do that. You didn't see your brother do that. Didn't see grandfather do that, uncle do that. And if you didn't have those examples, you probably didn't see any of your friends do it either.
Mm.
And so if you don't have that example, you don't have that mentorship, that leadership in your life, then you don't even know that it exists. You don't know what to do.
No, I think that's really valid. Like, if you haven't seen that growing up, it's hard to create that for yourself.
Mhm.
Um, and then I know for me, like it took a lot of great woman mentors and sponsors and, grew up well. But in addition to that, had other people in my life that really supported me throughout that journey because like I'm first generation too. So
Mhm.
like I'd be the first one doing masters, doing, higher education for my PhD. So like it's tough when you're navigating those spaces or trying to, like you said earlier, like fellowships and
Mhm.
assistantships and getting that support. So, um, yeah, and I love how you touched on that. It's difficult if you haven't seen that growing up and know what's good for
Mhm.
you. Like it's okay to get therapy
It
um,
is.
and receive that support. And knowing that, like having a therapist that looks like you, that's
Yes.
a
True.
big one.
Yes. Representation matters.
It does. Um,
Mhm.
so like also too, like why is the concept of belonging so critical when we talk about mental health outcomes in academic and clinical settings?
Because most times in academic and clinical settings, you see white counterparts and you don't see yourself there. And so it's important that you, even though somebody may be there that doesn't look like you still feel like you're supposed to be there. Um, we as people know when we're not welcomed. It's how people make you feel. It's how they treat you. You know, back in the day, when somebody come over to your house, would you like something to drink?
Mm,
Please have a seat. Make yourself at home. Anything I can do for you, it's courtesy. It's those southern hospitality. And when you go into these spaces and places, if they're not offering you something that they have, then you don't often feel like that you belong there
mm,
because in the space we're supposed to be working together, growing together, making plans together, be on the same path. There should be some sort of sharing because it's shared responsibility. And so, if you don't feel that you belong there, it's going to impact your mental health. It's going to diminish it because you're going to start questioning, like, why are they treating me this way? Why are they saying this? Why are they looking at me like this? And so, it's so important that people feel welcome in the spaces and places that they enter into because you will know. Like you will know if you're not welcome there, and that's going to cause you to become isolated and distant from those individuals. And then you'll start looking elsewhere for to fill that void.
no, that is true. And I guess that kind of like goes back to the point of like, I guess with a man and his significant other, like you were saying
Mhm.
earlier, if he's not feeling welcomed in that space, that could then start having and triggering him to have certain thoughts of
Mhm.
suicide.
Mm.
Um, so no, I really appreciate that perspective on how you touched on that.
Welcome.
And also too, you founded the National Association of Black Social Workers student chapter at Tulane. What gap were you hoping to fill by creating that space?
Well, the opportunity came to me. I was as a student there. One of the deans of there saw me in the hallway one day and was like, "Hey, I have an opportunity for you." And I was like, "Me?" And she was like, "Yeah, sure. I want you to become a project assistant for us, and I want you to be able to create this space for Black students because they didn't have one there. They talked about it, they played around with it, but nothing really came into fruition that is stuck." And so I got hired on to work on this project. And so that required me to spend time talking to the national office and just compiling all the information, getting the data together, polling people to become officers, getting other professors involved to be advisors with me. Because not only was I working at Tulane, I was also a student there in my doctoral program. So I'm having a dual role. So for the purposes of like accountability and balancing checks of powers. I, wanted two other professors to come on with me to help me with that as well. And so we ended up getting president, vice president, two secretaries, a treasurer, and we formed the student chapter. And it was great. We really did a lot of work together. And I had an opportunity to start something, to found something. And I was so not only just proud of myself, but I was proud of the people that stepped up, like that wanted to be a part of it. It gave me so much joy to see people like, yeah, I want to be a part of that. And we just started rattling in students from like all over the School of Social Work. And even we partnered with the School of Public Health. Like we did an event with them towards HIV. It was great. We had opportunities where other professors or other social workers came in and told their life stories and how to get to where they are in life. We had different, different opportunities and events that poured into the students that they didn't have before. People that look like them, people that sound like them, people who walked that road. And it was just such a joy to be able to be a part of that experience, that encounter with all the students and be able to lead and guide. And I was just great. It was a great feeling just to know like I'm actually implementing my gifts, like I'm operating my gifts, like I'm leading and guiding. And I also learned how to take a step back and allow other people to lead, where I just provide oversight. Like there was a one thing that I learned was that I didn't have to do everything. Delegation was important, and it gave me an opportunity to really trust people with the vision, even though it was things that it was all of ours to have, but like the vision also belonged to them too. And that was great for me as a leader to learn that, to be able to co-create things with other people. And I love that. It showed a lot of collaboration and partnership.
No, I love that. And especially like when you get to see something from the beginning and then it actually transforms and folks believe in it.
Mhm,
It's such a beautiful thing. And I think like you touching on too, like trusting who's
mhm,
involved under your leadership is really important and that they can do the task that you give them to do and execute it. Um, and I think sometimes like at least for me, like with founding my nonprofit, it was hard at first.
mhm.
It was hard at first because it's like, oh, I see the vision. I know what we need to do.
Yeah,
I'll just do it myself.
yeah.
But then that will cause burnout. And then
Hmm.
what's the point of having these folks involved if you know this is a part of them as well too? This is their vision too, equally shared. Um, so
Yeah. It was great. It was a combination of doctoral students and master level students. So it was great. We got the programs to come together, and they definitely loved it. It was a great experience.
no, that's great. So like having like different experiences from folks that are on the master's level, but also the doctoral level working together and being able to kind of like bounce ideas off of each other.
Yeah, and also gave someone who had never been in a leadership role before be in a leadership role and being able to mentor them and help them. Like, hey, how are things going? What are you thinking? How can I support you? Just things that it's just doing a check in because I know when I was president of my honor society in college, it's like I had that from our chapter advisor. So I wanted to make sure that I provided that same type of coaching and inspiration, just to be present. I don't always want to give you the answers. I want you to kind of figure it out. I want to see what you're thinking, and that helped me to grow as a leader as well.
No, definitely. And then I wanted to touch on too, like what have you learned about leadership by mentoring, advising students, especially students of color in academic institutions?
They want to feel trusted. Like we touched on earlier, they want to know that you trust them with it and not overstepping. Truly like allowing them to figure things out. I believe that if people are having a problem, they will let you know. Like you'll see it, and you just make that open space for them. And being able to know that it's okay to make mistakes, allow them to make mistakes. Like that's okay. Like the sooner, like my pastor said, the sooner we fail, the sooner we figure it out, and we can get back growing. And I think that's so important, just to allow people to be people because I think so oftentimes we try to shield people from mistakes. We want to kind of coddle a little bit, and I had to learn like, nah, I'm okay to let you fall and kind of like scrape your knee a little bit, but it's okay. It's gonna be right there to pick you back up because you're not alone. And it showed community because other officers checked in on other officers, like, hey, I see that you may need some help with this, or hey, I see you may be struggling with this, or hey, maybe you could do better. So I saw the collaboration and watching that oversight, having that oversight come to pass was amazing. And I learned how to just like step back and just watch things and play. Like the vision was out there, the responsibility was out there, the roles were out there, everything that they needed was out there, and I had the opportunity to step back and watch things play out in motion. It's like, oh, this is good, and I felt like they really did a great job of putting things together.
No, I love that. And also how you said like it's okay to allow people to fall and
Mhm,
learn. Just like how people have put ourselves in circumstances where they allowed us to fall and then we had to get back up. Um, and sometimes we do get into a protective state with certain folks because we could see where it's headed. But sometimes you just have to
mhm.
allow people to do that so they can grow and they can see it for themselves.
Yeah.
So like I really like how you touched on that. Um, and also, how do you navigate leading within systems that were not originally designed with equity or psychological safety in mind?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Um, So Mel Robbins has this new book called The Let Them Theory. It's booming bestseller book. She's bestselling author. And I recently finished that book and I learned that in spaces and places where we're not always welcomed or belong or feel that we're belong and whatnot, where those systems try to challenge us, let them. Let them do what they're gonna do, and you don't make it about you and you do what you have to do for you, because I recognize that we're not in control of other people. If we try to be in control of the people, we'll burn out. We will just basically just fall apart, and it can lead to resentment, it can lead to offense, it can lead to health problems, mental health problems, all those different things. You just have to be able to do what only you can do. I think when we try to take control of things, it only makes things worse. Sometimes you just have to fall back and embrace it, and you do what you need to do and let things kind of like the chips fall as they may, and that can be difficult. um because I've had to learn that nobody else's affirmation or validation determines my worth or my value. So if you don't affirm what I'm doing, or confirm me or anything of that nature, or celebrate me in the nature, that is fine. I know that I'm a leader, and my leadership isn't about a title. It's a position of serving other people.
Mm,
And I think that mindset of servant leadership is it's not really welcome or even thought of, or may even have a misconception of that. I believe that servant leadership is truly about helping serving others while still leading. You're in there doing it with them. And when I look at leadership, the pillars that I think of leadership is compassion, it's kindness, it's humility, it's gentleness, it's patience, those things. And people will probably think about that's not leadership. I'm like, yes, it is, because it's human. I think sometimes we forget that we're human. Yes, it's a business. Yes, we have roles. Yes, we have responsibilities. But yet there still comes a part where you're working with other humans and you don't know what they go through.
mm,
And I do believe leading with excellence, and I do believe in accountability. I do believe in holding people a standard. But also, you have to create rapport with people and trust with people in order to get them to have that same vision and work together. I do believe that it takes a lot of work to do that. And some people don't want to do that because they know they weren't given that same opportunity. And they may think, why should I show love and compassion or gentleness to somebody when it wasn't shown to me?
mm,
They may not say that out loud, but internally, that's what they're experiencing. That's what they're thinking, because there's not always an academy or some type of track record or even a training program to be a leader. They're not always out there. Some people learn on the job from what they've seen from other people. As we talked about before, behavior is learned. It's what you've seen modeled. So if you've seen that that's how you were treated, that's what's your experience, then that's what you're going to continue to do. That cycle will continue. And it's just defense mechanism. It's projecting. And so a lot of people don't learn from those things or recognize that that's what they're doing, and they continue on keeping that cycle. And that just creates more burnout in the workplaces, and that creates resentment in the workplaces. And it also creates lack of belonging in the workplaces. That also creates people um, sometimes even getting burnt out to the point where they do complete suicide. This is a heavy cycle, because the systems don't want to change, because the systems don't want to understand that there's an opportunity for growth. There's silos that are there. And I've seen that in so many different sectors that I've worked in. And it's really sad because they talk about it, but they don't always demonstrate it. And it's just really disappointing. It really is, to say the least. And no person is perfect, but I do believe that if we take a step back, kind of like I did with being the chaplain. If I can just take a step back and really think about yourself and how you would feel, I think it would help a lot. Trying to put ourselves in other people's shoes and see like, probably we heard about that too, or hey, I think I could have said that different. I could have done that differently, or I really don't know what they get going through at home for them to even be operating in this mindset.
mm. So how do you think like could kind of be able to bridge the gap between those silos within the sector?
Communication. And not just hosting a focus group and just hearing people's, opinions and thoughts and their their pain points. It's really doing something with it. Really taking an examination, like a surgery. You open up and see what's really going on, what's working, what's not working, and being able to call it out, being able to name it, being able to truly figure out how can we make something different that's transformative, that's going to create a better culture. Because oftentimes we think about culture, we think about race, we think about ethnicities, we think about those different things, but culture is also just how things feel.
Mm,
When you walk into a place, what does the that work culture look like? Are people smiling? Are they happy? Do they want to come to work? We talk about Sunday scaries all the time. So how is their nervous system on a Sunday night? Knowing they got to come back to work the next day, or better yet, how's their nervous system throughout the day? Or if you send your staff member a IM or email like I need to meet with you, are they going to immediately think that something's wrong?
Mm.
So it's about how you make them feel. And I think that a lot of time leaders don't think how they make other people feel. Those silos had to be broken by also allowing people to be a part of the vision. Oftentimes, C-suites and executives don't really communicate that to other leaders who may be on the front line. And that impacts them as well. You have an expectation for them to do something, but how do they know how to do it if you haven't communicated it to them or if you haven't demonstrated it to them as well? So that creates the silos. And also, it's a misrepresentation of leadership because you want them to do something that you never told them how to do. And when they don't do it, then you want to basically scar them for it. Like you want to berate them, you want to punish them for it. But it's your poor leadership that caused that. And instead of taking ownership of that, you project that because you don't want to take accountability for the fact that I did not communicate this correctly or properly. I didn't invite them in. They were an outsider. I didn't invite them in. So how are they supposed to know?
No, I think those are all like really valid points, especially like um keeping folks as outsiders and not inviting them in and not wanting to see folks grow, I think is like a major factor too. I've seen that a lot. But I really appreciate like your points on that. And also too, like as a doctoral teaching fellow, how do you balance academic rigor with compassion and trauma-informed care?
Ooh, that was a great experience for me. So I think it was my second year of being a doctoral student at Tulane, and I had the opportunity to teach the MSW students, and it was an advanced clinical and community practice 2 class. And so I had the opportunity to share with them my life experiences working in the different sectors and being able to bring back to them information. And it was great. I got to meet them where they were. And one of the first things that I did, I was like, how do you all like to learn? Because I don't think a professor really asks that. Like, what is your style of learning? Do you like presentations? Do you like discussion boards? Do you like to be involved in the teaching where I give you an assignment, you all come up with it, and then you teach the class, teach yourselves and things of that nature. Like we all have different learning styles. And I don't think that people always consider that when they're a professor. You got to meet the people where they are because they're the ones that's going to be learning. They're the one that's paying for the education. So why not include them in part of the process? And some people may say, like, well, you're there, you're supposed to set the tone. Like, I am. I'm teaching autonomy. I'm teaching growth. I'm teaching leadership skills. I'm teaching skills as well. And the professor that I was linked with was so in love with that. She thought it was great. And so we collaborated, we partnered with it, and the students loved it. We talked about policy, we talked about history, we talked about behavioral health services. Man, we talked about a lot in that class. It was just so great. And I just great opportunity to show rapport and even just to share my own experience with going through a MSW program and being a clinical social worker and even being in a leadership position. So yeah, it was great. I connected well with the students and I don't know. They enjoyed it now, and I just was glad that I had an opportunity to plant a seed in their lives. I really found that teaching was a passion of mine, because it's a gift. I think it's an honor to be able to help somebody to grow and to become the best version of themselves.
No, and I think that's the beautiful part about teaching too, being able to use all of your experiences and give
Hmm.
that gift to others, so that they can like thrive in their retrospective fields, and be that mentor, to others as well too. And like you said, they're the ones paying for the education. So,
Yeah, they
like,
are, and
yeah.
they and we know this tuition is high. It's high.
So, like giving them that chance to be part of the process is really important. I think another thing too, I was just talking to someone about this, is that like it's okay if you need tutoring because you're paying
Yes,
for it.
yes, you are.
So like don't let your grades get to the point where like you're flunking in a class or it's just getting like worse and worse and worse. Like reach out to your professor. If you didn't do an assignment right, see if you could redo it.
Yeah.
Like it's literally okay to go to tutoring. It's a service that you pay for. So.
Or if you're struggling, like you have a personal problem, personal family emergency going on, or just a mental health day, like you dealing with some things, you're like, hey, I got this going on. Can I turn this assignment in late? Sure. I appreciate the fact that you were honest. You communicated that with me. We can work through that because we're all human. We all got life happening at us that we can't always control. So I feel like why would I say no? Why would I flunk you? Why would I do something to hurt you when I'm there to help you? You
Mm.
know? And even if it becomes a pattern, we sit down and we talk about it. Hey, like, what's really going on? How can I help you? How can I support you? And being able to communicate, work that through, bringing in, dean of students or whoever, just showing that, hey, you have community, you have things going on here that we can support and assist you with. And I think that really helps students as well to know that they're not alone, because oftentimes people feel like they're alone. And like sometimes they might be just like us, first gen students. They don't know what they're doing. They're still trying to figure it out, and they need that support.
No, they definitely do. And also too, like, what do you believe students need the most from academic leaders today beyond content and credentials?
Ooh. Kind of goes back to that compassion, that kindness, the humility, the gentleness, the patience. Those things, those pillars is so key because it parallels between like in work organizations and companies, but also in academia. Because one thing that I learned in being in academia, especially in school of social work, um, just because you're a leader in social work, you're still also a social worker. And I think that sometimes that doesn't always connect and click because we as social workers are known to be, empaths. We're showing a lot of empathy. We show a lot of compassion, and we really walk with people who going through difficult things in life, different challenges. And I think sometimes when you get into certain positions, that goes away. Like, and I don't know if it's intentional or it's just because you're trying to just fit the culture of the role, but those skills are still very much important. They may be considered soft skills, but those soft skills can go a long way. And I think that students definitely just need that. They need to know that they're there for them, and that you're also willing to help them. Because one thing that I noticed too is that communication. Sometimes professors do not communicate with the students. They'll send you an email. You might not never, the professor may never respond. Or, you ask them like, hey, I need some additional assistance with this. Well, this is what I taught in class. Go back and read the notes. Instead of like setting up like a quick 15-30 minute Zoom meeting or whatever, your phone call, whatever, and just being able to talk it through with them because that's what you get paid to do.
Mm,
It's not about collecting a check. You are entrusted with somebody else's life to help them to become the best version of themselves for the community.
mm.
That's something that it's a privilege, it's an honor. And if you don't steward that well, then it has the potential of you being removed from that. So I don't think that people take heed to that enough. It's like those students are entrusted to you and you got to take good care of them. It's like a shepherd with some sheep. You got to take care of them.
No, I love how you said that. And I think a lot of times, like, folks don't understand how big of a role it is to be in a teaching role. And that
Mhm.
goes through K through 12,
Yes,
that
yes,
goes to,
yes.
higher education, being able to teach others and whatever they're trying
Mhm.
to learn to help better the community, because that's the whole purpose of education.
Yes.
Really, really huge honor and privilege. And like I said, being a good steward of that. Um,
Mhm.
so also too, what role should academic leaders play in addressing adverse childhood experiences and their long-term impacts?
I think understanding that people go through different things in life that they may not communicate, but it will show up. Meaning that like ACEs, average childhood experiences, it shows up on the scale of like household dysfunction, abuse, and neglect. And so you may see somebody struggling either with maybe a physical health condition or a behavioral health condition or the social determinants of health. And if you are paying attention to your student and to their work, you can kind of see some of that a little bit based upon their engagement, whether in class or not. And sometimes I think you just really got to just walk with students and learn more about them. Even though you may be with them for a short period of time, you're learning like their background, what they've gone through, and being able to be more sensitive and recognize that not everybody had a silver spoon in their mouth. Some students really do come from rural areas, and some students may come from, the foster care population. I don't think that teachers always think about that. Your student could have potentially been in foster care.
Mm,
Your student could have potentially been, bounced around from house to house, been in the system. They could have been in juvenile detention growing up. I had colleagues who had been arrested before, colleagues who had substance misuse um, disorders, and people who have been through a lot of different just adverse experiences in life, and you would have never known had you not just talked to them.
mm,
And sometimes professors will never know that information, but I think that you can lead with authenticity and be able to know and create that setting in the beginning, like, hey, this is a safe space for you. We're all here not only just to learn, but I want to make sure that I teach with integrity. I teach with compassion. I teach with love, and being able to really just make students feel safe to be there, that they belong there. And because sometimes people don't always feel that they belong where they are. And so just having that trauma informed mindset, that trauma informed experience is so important. And I don't think that enough organizations and places keep that in mind. They talk about it. Oh, we had the training to check all. We check the boxes. But how are you implementing that? What does it look like? And don't just give me a survey. No, let me do a focus group and talk to the people there and seeing what's really going on. Because I promise you, a survey can't really tell. We can't just use quantitative statistics at this point. We gotta do some qualitative thing. Like, now let me go ahead and talk to them one on one and see what's really going on to really get the info. Because if you're expecting them to say what you want them to say, they're not gonna be honest.
Mm.
They're not, because they don't feel safe to be honest. They need a safe space to be heard, to express how they feel without no judgment and without fear of retaliation. 'Cause that's a big thing. Most people don't even go to HR or employee relations because they fear retaliation. Because at this point in time, is HR really on your side?
Mm.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things you got to really just think about, just being truly trauma informed and being able to just create that safe space for people. Like, psychological safety is big. I know it's one of those buzzwords right now and whatnot, but it really is big. Because people don't often feel safe in their workplace. People don't often feel safe in their school. People sometimes don't even feel safe in their own homes. Like, let's be real. People don't always feel safe in their own churches.
Mm.
So it's like the communities and where we spend a lot of our time at, we don't feel safe there. That's not good. You got to really think about a person's mental well-being.
No, I really appreciate that. And also how you touched on like the surveys. Don't just hand a survey that you put together.
Yes.
Where did you get that
Yes.
data from? Are those
Third,
real responses from real people?
mhm.
And if
Not AI, third
yeah,
party.
right. Like let's really see the real people and how
Yeah.
they feel about it. Um, and like also too, how can academic institutions better support men who are struggling silently with depression, identity, or burnout?
I think really just being able just to talk to the guys. I mean, most people in school are women. And so a lot of people in academia also sometimes can be women as well. But just having a safe space for men to know, like even my doctoral program, it was literally me and one other guy. That was it. It was just us. And even when I was in my MSW program, literally me and one other guy. So it's very few and far. And so just creating some sort of like I don't know if it's a group or just some type of touch base, like, hey, how you doing, man? Like, what's going on? How can I be there for you? Type thing with men. Just let them know that they belong, because typically, women would dominate those spaces and places, and so it's like men need to know that they belong there too. And sometimes that can be a challenge. But really just walking with them, seeing how they're doing, seeing how they can help, seeing how I can support them and whatnot, making connections. I think that's another big thing, because sometimes people don't network enough, and sometimes you don't even know somebody's passions or desires or aspirations because you're not even, checking in on them. I believe coffee chats are so important. Just connect with people. I think if deans or professors or whomever that's in a leadership role there can kind of connect with some of the certain demographics there, it would be great. Men, black men, or men, or even men of color, just in general. It don't even have to be black men. It could be, Hispanic men, Asian Pacific Islander men. It could be whomever. Um, just knowing that they belong.
No, I love that. And like also seeking out like other supports outside of your program, like
Mhm.
being a part of different like associations or
Yes,
fraternities
yes.
or, seeking out a brotherhood that can kind of support you in your journey, I think is like really important to have too.
Yeah. I don't think we um I don't think we look at community as being a source of healing,
Mm.
because community is always, it's a double-edged sword. So community can be a source of brokenness and pain, but also community can also be a source of healing and recovery. But it's all about how the community chooses to show up for people.
Mm.
And I think that's so important that we have to look at ourselves, like, how are we showing up for people today? We collectively, how are we doing that?
I think that's a big one too, like how you touched on before. In some of these communities, we don't feel safe.
Mhm.
And these communities were supposed to be designed so we could feel safe. But I
Mhm.
also say to people too, these communities are ran by people, people with
Mhm.
different experiences. So it's not like the church itself, the church building
Mhm.
itself is the people that are running the church.
Yes.
It's not like the school itself, because the school is the business, it's the people that are running the school. Because if that leadership leaves, a new leadership could come in and now it's a totally different dynamic. Um, so I think it's
Exactly.
really important, like looking at it like that too. Um,
Mhm.
and also too, like what responsibility do male leaders have in modeling vulnerability and also emotional wellness?
I think being able to just demonstrate in a way that to show that they go through things too. I believe about a month or so ago, the president of NASW had a online forum with a couple of other brothers on there talking about mental health and being able to share that they have a group chat, they check in on each other, they have community, and be able to show like, hey, like I'm having a hard time. I've gone through this. I've been through that. I went through this challenge. This is how I overcame, just be able to share. I think storytelling is so important. Most people look at me as being a storyteller. They say I tell a great story, and I never really saw myself in that light, but apparently I do. And I think just being able to share with people your different challenges. If you think about it, it's what I'm doing now, share my story. Just sharing the different adversities and how you overcame them. It helps other people. It really does. And I don't think we think about it like that. But when I looked into community-based participatory research in school, like storytelling is one of the main things that brings healing in communities. People just sharing their experiences and how they overcame. And it's so important because we don't realize that somebody else in their room may be going through something else very similar and they need to hear that. Or they may know somebody else who's going through that. They be able to, regurgitate that information to them. And so showing up with vulnerability and compassion is so important as a male leader and showing your people that, hey, I go through things too and I'm here with you. I think it's so important that men just lead with authenticity and just being vulnerable. And that can be hard, especially if you've never done it before or out of fear of somebody's coming back and saying something to you or using it against you. But I think it takes discernment. It takes a lot of great wisdom and also just doing it with good intentionality. Everybody might not always be open to your intentions because there's a difference between intention and perception. They may perceive it differently, but that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to be, intentional in the good that you're putting out and setting those good boundaries with how you interact with people and how you show up for people as well, because you are a role model and you have to make sure that you're leading in such a way that continues to allow people to trust you with not just their feelings, their emotions, their passions, but also just trust you in a place of leadership that you're going to always do the right thing when it needs to be done.
And I appreciate that. And like also you said like being entrusted, trusting is
Mhm.
big.
Yeah.
And I think also to being able to model that, like that let's say there is a person that's in a high leadership role and being able to say like, going out there and talking to other young Black men, and saying,
Mhm.
hey, this is how I did it, or like seeking out opportunities to be a mentor, I think is really
Mhm.
important too. And sharing that knowledge and not being a knowledge gatekeeper.
That part, because people like to gatekeep things. Like they don't want nobody else to get to where they are. The jealousy and envy is so rampant in our communities today. No, you say you want to help people, but you don't want to tell them the secret sauce.
Mm,
It's it's like Raising Cane's chicken sauce. We know the ingredients. Grandmama can taste that thing and tell you all five of those ingredients. Or it's not like it's a Krabby Patty, secret formula. Like we know what it is. We you acting like we some planktons out here. But truly, like you have to be able to like share with people how you got to where you want to be because that's the way that only people are gonna make it. If you don't write the blueprint, how do they know where to go?
mm,
And maybe the question is, do you want them to even go where you were?
mm,
And if you want to help people not make the same mistakes that you've made, then maybe you should tell them how you did it.
mm. I think that's really important too, like I said, sharing knowledge.
Mhm.
I know for me, like I am constantly seeking opportunities that I can be a mentor to young women.
Mhm.
First through the nonprofit, um,
Yes,
but
yes.
also even outside of it too. Like just became a mentor for another program outside the nonprofit. Um, with Black professionals in international affairs and the Links Incorporated. And I'm really looking forward to
Mhm.
that. I'm looking forward to
Awesome.
like, working with the young women that
Yeah.
are, 13 to 21 and the nonprofit we work with 13 to 20. Yeah,
Yes.
so I think it's like so important to show up when
Mhm.
you have been blessed, when God constantly blesses you with opportunities, sharing that knowledge with the next generation because we want them to come up and I want someone to take this position that I'm in.
Mhm.
Whether that's,
Yeah.
teaching or making sure that they have an opportunity to go to a master's program, knowing that they can go to a higher educational program and get a doctorate is really important.
Yes.
And knowing that there are fellowships and assistantships and grants and scholarships that can support you, and how to qualify for those too, because they're competitive.
Hmm. Yeah, they
Um,
are. They are.
so, I think it's so important to share that because it was hard for me.
Mhm.
Well, it still is because I'm in my PhD program, but navigating it and figuring out
Yeah.
all these different things that could help me throughout this journey. And
Hmm.
most people don't know.
Yeah.
So I think it's important if we can get the younger generation when they're young. So by
Hmm.
the time it's time for them to embark on that, they already have all the tools that they need. So it's not
Yeah.
a lot of, scrambling and figuring this out, like even how you touched on financial aid earlier, you know,
Hmm.
the disconnect there and how that operates. And oh, well, you're only going to give me $1,500, you know, for the year.
Yeah. You're right.
Like this is it. Like this
Yeah.
isn't gonna, cover it.
Yeah.
So navigating through all that, I think is really important. And showing up constantly.
It is. It is because I believe in leaving places better than when you found them.
Mm,
That's so important. And I think a lot of the times our community complains about the generations. Oh, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. They're out here doing this. Well, are you showing them anything different?
mm,
Are you helping? Are you a part of the problem or are you a part of the solution? Please let me know. Like, because you're going to complain about it, but are you going to do something about it?
mm,
And I think that a lot of people just like chatter versus just, putting forth the effort to help, and help with intentionality, help with genuineness. Like, don't do it because, you look for anything in return, or don't do it out of spite. Do it because you genuinely care, That's so, so important. It's important to mentor the next generation. We're in a nation and also a world that's hurting. We need love, we need compassion, we need to help people out. I mean, each one teach one for sure, because we never really know what people have gone through and whether they had support or don't have support.
mm.
So we got to be able to truly just walk alongside with people, and that's difficult sometimes, but it's so rewarding too. Because I had the opportunity to mentor young boys through a nonprofit here some years ago. It was where they were seniors in high school going to college. So, and I had the opportunity to really meet with them every week. And we would talk about goals and planning, what to do to get there, helping them through that process and all of that. And it gave me so much joy to be able to pour into their lives and being their mentor. And it was great. I definitely enjoyed it because I knew I didn't have that. I did not have that. And so I wanted to give back to something, to someone that I knew needed it just as much as I did, if not more.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I think another thing that's important to touch on too is the difference between mentorship and sponsorship. And mentorship is great, but also sponsorship, sponsoring someone to get into a room that they can't get into. Because a
Mhm.
lot of times I think with mentorship, it's very informal and you're leading someone with knowledge to get them to that door, but you're not opening that door for them. And
Exactly.
I think, especially within our community, that is a disconnect that we really need
Mhm.
to, break through and heal through.
Mhm.
That it's important to
Mhm.
sponsor folks. Let's say there is, um, an organization you're part of that's for executive, leaders, and you might have a ticket where you can invite a young person,
Mhm.
invite that young person to get into
Yeah.
that room, you know, or
Yeah.
you might have an opportunity to go to an event or a gala, invite them to that gala because they
Yeah.
wouldn't have had that opportunity said
Nope.
otherwise because
Mhm.
you need to be a part of some type of group, some type of community,
Mhm.
one percenters of
Yeah.
something to have that opportunity. So I think it's so important showing them different experiences than what they've been seeing. And like you said, a lot of chatter happens a lot where we're saying, oh, they're not
Mhm.
doing anything, they're not doing sports, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. Well, invite them,
Mhm.
take them, take
Yeah.
them to those places and open up that door so they can see
Mhm.
something different and they can be better than you. I want
Yeah.
everyone that I mentor and now working on
Mhm.
trying to sponsor and bring folks along with me and open up that door so they can see something
Mhm.
new, to be better than me.
Yeah. Exactly. Successful people don't want to do succession planning,
Mm,
and that's really profound because why wouldn't you want to help somebody else come in behind you? Because, like
mm,
you said earlier, somebody's going to have to take your place one day. But
Mhm.
you can't be intimidated or be in fear of somebody doing it. It's going to happen whether you like it or not. You just got to prepare for it. And it's so important to do succession planning with people who you know want other opportunities and they have the potential of getting there, and you support them to get there. You bring them along with you to meetings, you bring them along with you to events, you make connections, you help them do that because one day you're going to transition out of that and somebody's going to transition. You want to be able to trust the next person is going to be in your leadership role.
And I
So yeah, I think it's so important.
That's really important. And like you said, a lot of leaders do not do succession planning. And it's
Yeah,
really important that we start doing that and somebody is going to take your spot.
yeah.
It's just the way of life. And but preparing
Mhm.
and training someone up so you know that they could do it the best way that you need them to do it, and be
Exactly.
successful in that role. So why not have someone that you know that you can entrust doing it?
Yeah, because as a leader, I've never had anybody do succession planning with me. I've
Mhm.
never had a leader that tried to show me what they were doing, how they were doing, and how they got to where they are. So that way, one day I could potentially take their place. Instead, they've been intimidated by my gift, by my light, by my personality and what I bring to the table. So they'll put me in a silo. They'll cover me. They won't invite me to certain things. They'll leave me out intentionally. But one thing that I know is that even if I'm not in the room, that my name is still being spoken in other places, and God will create opportunities in other places for me to thrive in. And what's meant for me is going to be for me, regardless of whether what they do or not. They're missing out on their blessing because those who refresh others will be refreshed themselves.
No, I love that. And I also wanted to touch on too, like you're also the author of a faith-based poetry book. So how does faith and creativity expression inform your work as a scholar and a clinician?
Wow. So my faith has been was grew or really recognized as a young boy. Growing up, my neighbor actually took me to church. My dad was a truck driver. My mom couldn't drive. She didn't ever know how to drive. So my neighbor took me to church. And by going to church, I got community. I learned who Jesus Christ is. And I gave my life to Christ at a young age. And also around in that young age, I started writing poetry as a way to cope with my depression, my sadness, my loneliness. And I didn't really realize what I was doing until years later. And and I say that because I remember when I first started writing poetry, my fourth grade teacher told me one day that I was never going to amount to anything in life.
Mm,
And that really broke me as a kid. And so I started writing my emotions. I started just writing things out in a poetic form. And I kept doing it over years and years and years. And then I noticed that anytime I got sad, anytime I was dealing with depression, anytime I was dealing with anxiety, I just started writing. And so I started writing even more in college and grad school. And by the time I finished grad school, I had a whole book. I did not even recognize that that's what I had, what I was doing the whole time. It's a collection of poems. And I buried the idea because the enemy told me that nobody would ever read my work. So
mm,
I sat on it. I literally buried it until one day I was working at a partial hospitalization program, and I was telling some of the patients I was doing therapy with there in a group setting about the book that I had, like the collection of poems and everything. It's like, man, I wish you would have wrote that book and published it because maybe I wouldn't even be here right now. Maybe I wouldn't have relapsed on drugs or, contemplated suicide and this, that, and the other. That broke me. It really did something to me because like, wow, I had an opportunity to help somebody, to share something with somebody, and I didn't. I
mm,
didn't act on it.
mm,
I was passive with it. I
mm,
didn't steward it well. So I blew the dust off that book. I got it copyrighted, sent the manuscript in to a Christian publisher that I kept seeing a commercial for every single day for like many days. Like, all right, Lord, I hear you. And the foundational scripture of the book is from 2 Timothy 1:7. For God does not give us a spirit of fear, but a power and of love and of a sound mind. And so it's 10 poems on power, 10 poems on love, and 10 poems on having a sound mind. And it's really a depiction of my personal life experiences, good, bad, ugly, and how I got through it, and to encourage readers who are battling with different things in life. And it has really been impactful to many, many people. I remember some years ago, I was a part of the Just Heal Bro tour that one of my colleagues invited me to be a part of, and I got a chance to sell my book there with so the men could actually, get some type of resource material to encourage them and provide hope. And I didn't even charge the men for it. I
Mm.
gave it to them and just for free, that the copies that I had left. And they were like, "You don't want any money for this?" Like, no, I just want to plant a seed. And that's what I realized that I was doing. My experiences, my work, all of that, it was just a seed to plant in other people's lives. And I trust that that seed will grow in their lives and bring them healing, bring them hope, bring them restoration, give them courage and confidence, and just know that they're not alone. Because as a man, as a leader, and also a person being in ministry myself, because I'm also an ordained minister, it really helped me to see how I could put my gifts and put my faith into action to help others. Sometimes it's not about what you do inside the four walls of the church. It's about what you're doing on the outside to get people to come into the church or to come to Christ.
Mm.
And so I've been walking that out, like allowing my faith to be louder than fear, because fear has been the thing that I've battled with my entire life, and it's one of those things that I know has already been conquered. I'm still just walking out that victory.
No, I love that. And I think like it's so important, like just as you touched on, like even with the book, and the enemy saying, you know what, don't do it. But and I feel like those are the moments that when he's telling you don't do it, that's when you're supposed to do it. And I had
Mhm.
to learn that and like really try to push and fight through that. Um,
Yeah.
like there was times with the nonprofit where I had it on pause before I like finally said, okay, I'm going to take it seriously, Lord, and make it happen. And seeing where it is now, like I would have never imagined. Like I still don't even imagine where it's going. But like it's like if I would have acted on it then,
Yeah.
whose life would have been saved during that time? Um,
Exactly.
so like it's just so important, like acting on it and like you touching on like how you've seen the commercial for it for a while. And you were like, it's probably not for me. That's just something I'm looking at. But no, it's in your face because God's trying to show you something.
Mhm.
So
The
I
fact
think
the fact that the commercial, a Christian publishing commercial, was on Cartoon Network
wait,
says it
no.
all. Yes, 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 yes. I'm sitting up the, trying to watch my Dragon Ball Z or watch something else, and that comes. I'm like, okay, okay, okay. This is true. Why is this on here? What?
Right.
Is this a paid advertisement? Like, what is this? Because it kept coming on. I was like, okay, all right. I hear you, Lord. And I haven't seen a commercial for that ever since I was.
Oh wow. See, and that's
Yeah.
how you know, like in those moments, like I feel like God has a funny sense of character. Like it'll be a moment that like
Yes.
we don't recognize like what's going on, but it's him planting that seed like randomly. And nothing's random,
Hmm.
but it's like at a time test, it's like, oh, this is random. Like I don't even know why I'm like what I'm looking at, but it's him
Yeah.
trying to show you something, um, you
Yep.
know, for to use you to help others. So
Yes.
it's just a blessing. Like, you did act on it and, planting that seed, giving a free copy. I think that's another thing too. Sometimes like God, he'll give us a gift and sometimes we'll try to like then make money off of it.
Mhm.
And it's like sometimes like it's like, no, like I just want to help you, you
Yep.
know? Like I really just want to like just make sure that you're okay and you have this resource to you to help save your life.
Yeah.
So I love
Exactly.
like how you did that. Um, and also too, like when you imagine the future of academia, what does leadership rooted in healing and equity truly look like?
Mm. That's a good one. I think it's us coming together as one,
Mm,
allowing everybody to have a seat at the table. The deans, the professors, the staff, and students. Not just people in student government, but actually students there, and truly coming together as one to figure out what are we doing well with and where do we need room for improvement.
mm,
How can we collaborate and partner to make sure that we're all on the same page, to make sure that we're all operating in the vision? And it takes a lot of humility to do that. It takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot of trust to do that. But you got to be willing to do it. You got to be willing to do something different in order to see different results. And it gives, I don't know, with the way our nation is with DEI, but when I tell you inclusivity is so important, it really is. But people also often forget that not only diversity, equity, and inclusion is in that bundle, but justice and belonging is as well.
mm,
So how are you showing justice and belonging in your academic setting, in your school, your program? How are you implementing that with your team, your leaders, your students. How are you modeling that? What are you doing to create that? And I know that deans are busy. I've seen it myself, but how often you really just taking the time to meet with the students themselves and really just spending time with them? I know that we're in so many different meetings. We got this quota to make. We got to make this connection. We got to get this amount of money into the school. But what if the student knows somebody that can help, but you wouldn't even have known that if you didn't make that connection with that student? You
Mm,
know, there's so many different opportunities we may miss out on because we're not willing to meet with the people that it's impacting.
mm,
And I think that's so important that we meet with people who are actually the consumers
mm,
because they're the ones that's receiving the service. And then meeting with the people who are providing the service to make sure that they're whole. Wholeness is so important. How are you doing? Are you well? How are things at home? You know, how are you mentally, physically? Do you need a mental health day?
mm,
Hey, how can I support you? What do you need to grow? What are you interested in? What's your passion? What's your goal? How can I support you in your needs? Those questions matter. And oftentimes in academia or even in organizations, those questions aren't often asked. It's expected of you to ask that question to your front line. However, your leader doesn't always ask you that. So you have to lead by non-example. You're given an expectation without any demonstration.
mm. And I think that's really important, like how you touched on that. And like also like I wanted to ask, like, what advice would you give to emerging scholars and practitioners who want to lead with integrity and impact?
Be different from what you experienced.
Mm,
If you had a poor experience from leaders, from your professors, from your academic, colleagues and what have you, be different. You don't have to repeat that cycle.
mm,
I think it's so important that you be the change that you want to see, but also be what you never had. And that's what I've been doing. And I believe it's working really well. Am I perfect? No. Have I achieved it all? No. But I'm making progress. And I think that's so important. It's not about perfection, it's about progression. And that's what I strive to do, to make progress, to make lasting impression, and to make sure I treat people the way I want to be treated or even better.
mm,
And that's what serving leadership is about. It's giving yourself to other people and being able to still fill your cup too. Take care of yourself first, but also make sure you're taking care of the people that you've been entrusted with. Set good boundaries, knowing what you can and cannot handle. Say no to what you know you don't have the capacity for. And just being willing to learn to grow, take accountability. And it's okay if things don't work out the way that you hope and intended. Greater things are always coming, always. And we just can't give up. We got to continue to press forward no matter what the obstacle adversity we may face. That comes to test you.
mm.
We all go through periods of testing, trials, and transformation. And that transformation is uncomfortable. And that's why God called me to create redeeming solutions, trusting the process of uncomfortable transformation. I've gone through uncomfortable transformation. I'm still going through uncomfortable transformation. I will always go through uncomfortable transformations until the day that Christ comes back. And so it's just a part of the process. It's a part of the journey, and you got to embrace it. I think the sooner that you embrace that and stop fighting it, the
Mm.
quicker you'll get to where you're supposed to get to. And you'll just continue to model that every single time something comes out like, oh, well, I went through something like this similar. So I know what I need to do because I've done it this way before. And you'll get through it a whole lot better. But you have to be able to learn those patterns, learn those cycles, and not repeat them. And I think sometimes we continue to go and experience certain things is because we haven't learned our lesson yet.
Mm.
And so if we're supposed to help the next generation not fall in the same places that we fell in, then maybe we need to go ahead and fill those gaps and fill those holes with the things that we learn so that and teach them those things so that way they won't fall either.
And I think that's really important too, like how you touched on like sometimes we haven't learned our lesson and not recognizing patterns to certain scenarios that we kind of keep having a cycle into and breaking that. And also too, like what gives you the hope to continue this work?
Wow. First and foremost, my hope is in Jesus. He gives me hope. I'm so grateful that not only that he chose me, but he called me to this work. I
Mm,
get to partner with the savior of the world. And I think that's so humbling and so amazing. And I say that because it all belongs to him. It's his vision, his goals, it's his design, it's his blueprint. But he called me and chose me to partner with him. Of course, he could do it by himself if he wanted to. He's God. But the fact that he thought of me enough to say, hey, I want you to come along with me on this journey. And this is what I've called you to do. This is what I'm asking you to do. Will you be obedient? Will
Mm,
you trust me? Will you use what I place inside of you for something other than selfish ambition and gain, but to help somebody else come up? So that gives me hope to know that this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm grateful for that. Also, my hope comes from knowing the seeds that I planted in other people's lives and watching them grow. I've been through some very tumultuous situations and seasons in my life, but I've also seen the fruit of that. I've seen people who hurt me, but yet they were an assignment for me to bring them into salvation and also into a better experience and to see their life outcome be so much better where I get to see them walk in healing. Though we may not even talk, but God will show you glimpses of them and show them where they are. And that gives me so much joy to know that, wow, my faithfulness led to that. My obedience led to that. And just the people in my community now, my tribe, who I can lean on, I can call on, and they're there for me night or day. And to see how they pour back into me when I'm empty or I'm struggling, that gives me hope too. It lets me know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Not family, friends, community, church members, everyone, colleagues. I can call on them and they'll be there. Because oftentimes we think that we're alone, but we're really not. And so it gives me hope to know that I got people that got my back to continue to push me who believe in me. And that's so important. Faith is truly just believing.
mm,
And I got people that believe in me. So that gives me strength. That gives me hope. That gives me endurance. That gives me courage to know that if I got people believing in me, oh yeah, I can do anything because they see it in me. I see it in myself.
mm. No, I really appreciated that and like just really having faith. And I feel like for me, like faith has really helped me throughout my journey, um,
Mhm,
and building a sense of community, having amazing individuals at church, is really
mhm.
important. And family, friends, like you touched on as well too. So like I really appreciated that. Um, and also to like Dr. Justin T. Guy, thank you so much for your scholarship, your leadership, and your unwavering commitment to creating spaces where people can grow without losing themselves. Your work reminds us that academia does not have to be cold or rigorous, and leadership does not have to be distant or effective. Healing, belonging, and excellence can and must coexist. If you're listening and you feel inspired to rethink how you lead, you teach, or serve, we invite you to stay connected with Breaking the Silence with Angels Protection Inc., and we continue elevating voices that transform systems from the inside out. And remember, silence protects systems, not people. So let's keep breaking them together. And I really want you guys to like, comment, and subscribe on this video. And also, please support Dr. Justin T. Guys if you want to kind of let them know how they can connect with you further.
Sure, sure. So on LinkedIn is Dr. Justin T. Guy. Also on my Instagram handle is Dr. Justin T. Guy, one word, or also Redeeming Solutions LLC is my other handle for Instagram. So definitely come and connect with me. I would love to have conversations with y'all, partner with you all, and just looking forward to be able to do great work together.
No, so guys, please connect with him on LinkedIn. Definitely click him on LinkedIn and Instagram. LinkedIn is a great tool. I try to tell all the young people get on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Please get on LinkedIn. It's a great professional tool. And please connect with him. So again, thank you so much, guys, for watching and take care. Bye.
Bye, y'all.